Hey, it's about that time again. Thursday, May 15th, 2025. Larry Mastropieri, broker, owner of the Mastropieri Group, here once again alongside myself, John Laws of Discover South Florida. And Larry, the headliner, if anybody has already seen the thumbnail to this live stream, it gets your attention, or it certainly got my attention, because
Same.
for a number of reasons. So, evidently, according to the Business Journal, South Florida surpassed New York and LA as the least affordable place to rent in the United States, which I believe it in some ways and I don't, because as I'm looking at the article, I'm like, all right, are we going off like price per square foot here? Because I know if you've been up in New York, you live in a place that's like a box and they charge you like a couple grand for it monthly. I picture people in South Florida like you going, oh, I can't afford my penthouse anymore on the high rise in downtown Brickell. You know what I mean? Like I question a little bit of how they went about putting this together on what's affordable.
Well,
What was your thought when you first saw this?
well, there's so many good highlights or hooks here in this article that make you like say, wow, right? So, but I'll comment on your comment there in a second. So, high rents and living costs are driving residents out of South Florida with a 33% drop in population growth rate from 2023 to 2024, right? That's something we need to unpack, right? So that's kind of a part of this whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then think New York and LA are expensive. Think again, South Florida now tops the nation as the least affordable place to rent. It's crazy. There's one other in here that's like crazy. The headlines are brutal. Renters in Miami Metro now need over $110,000 a year just to stay financially afloat. That's a 54.4% growth compared to what was required in 2020. So these are all like big statements, and we kind of feel it, right? I feel like, right, living down here, you're like, wow, things are more expensive. It's not 2015 anymore, that's for sure. It's changed quite a bit, not 2019. So
but
yeah.
Again, I just, and I guess it's just maybe my bias towards some of the non-native Floridians that are down here, which, including myself, but seeing people like, I can't afford to have my Starbucks delivered to me anymore. And I don't know what I should do about it. You know what I mean? Like a picture, and it's like, define unaffordable. You know what I mean? Like, are you just not managing your money a little better? Like what? I have a hard time with some of this.
Well, I guess it varies, right, between like cities, but like to need to make 110 grand a year just to stay
make median
financially
rent
afloat.
Yeah,
that's pretty serious from an affordability perspective. So, but I get it, right? We live in such a wealthy area that you can have that perspective. But I think there's people here that are in the service industry that maybe that aren't like existing amongst these like waterfront residences that we spend most of our time dealing with in South Florida as residential realtors, right? So it's but yeah, I get your point too. There's another interesting stat in here. Let's dig it up. Here, rents now eat up about 40.4% of the average household income. New York is 40%, so they're a close second. Like, all right, we just snuck it out.
They haven't blown them away yet.
yeah. LA is cheaper, 36.4%.
That surprised me.
Tampa, 33% or 33.5%, and San Diego, 33.2%. So, we're obviously the highest, but New York is definitely we're basically in line with New York. I guess that kind of makes sense too. If you have enough population relocation from New York down here, you eventually just hit those thresholds, right? Because the people have the same incomes, right? And so now all of a sudden you hit those incomes or those thresholds. Median rent is around $2,749, but median incomes are stuck between 60 and 80,000. Which is interesting. And this is based on Redfin's data. So yeah, it does feel this is the reason why this is like something to talk about for what we're doing here, or why we're bringing this up, in my opinion, is it all goes back to like everybody wants to know, is it a good time to buy, good time to sell? What's the market like? That's like always the question, right?
Yeah.
And like, how does this information play into that? This is just another story or data point suggesting that we've kind of hit this like peak unaffordability threshold or high level mark in our local South Florida market, right?
It's funny because I was under the impression that rents had actually gone down a little bit, not substantially, but I thought they had kind of peaked, like they were sort of starting to come back down. Like that was big news. Maybe I made that up. I don't know.
No, I feel it. Rents are softening. And I think that's why, right? It's just like things have just hit that threshold where it's just like, wow, this is just too much. It's just too much. We're going to go do something else. We're going to find another solution. We're going to go share. We're going to go stay. We're going to go
to our granny flats.
Yeah. Go get some granny flats.
Actually, I think that might be kind of fun. You know, I mean, if I was, you know, like in my mid-20s and hell bent on living down here, you know, finding somebody who's got like this nice property, you know, I'm picturing like a mansion on the water or something. And then, oh, I'm going to rent the shed next to your place, if that's all right.
I think so, you know, so funny. Like when I came to school down here in 2005, that was a thing for college students who were going to live on campus, right? You go on Craigslist. There was no Facebook Marketplace. Like that wasn't a thing really. You go on Craigslist and you go find people who are subleasing a room or like a spare like guest house, casita, granny flat, whatever you want to call it. And you pay like something super cheap, like a few $100 to go live in this like back of somebody's house, right? Of an old lady's house is just trying to make a couple extra bucks to subsidize her expenses. Yeah, that was a thing. And now I'm sure that still happens now. We don't get involved in that anymore, but I remember doing this with friends. Like they would do this, right?
Yeah.
So,
you know, got to do what you got to do to survive. And obviously, you know, still being relatively young, you know, relatively low maintenance, it doesn't seem like it's the most impractical thing to do. So I understand. But yeah, this is something I feel like we're not going to see again anytime soon. You know, obviously the pandemic was very unprecedented, and having everybody from the Northeast seemingly move down here, it just, again, and coupled with the baby boomer generation that was still very much on their way, it just feels like it was such a perfect storm for all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. If you read this is kind of interesting. This is a comment on the population. And this isn't just a trend, it's a warning sign that the region's housing crunch is reaching a breaking point, right? According to Redfin's report, Miami-Dade County saw a 33% drop in residents from 2023 to 2024, with a net domestic migration down 67,000 last year compared to 50,000 the year before in 2023. So obviously we hit peak in 21 or 22. Yeah. And then every year after, what they're suggesting is there's been less migration by 60,000, 67,000, 50,000. It's not saying that the population growth is negative here. I just want to highlight that because the way these articles are written are for clickbait and not like teasing out the actual truth. So when you hear like population decrease or decline, it's really what they're talking about is they're talking about that growth rate, the acceleration of
It's like the equivalent of an inflation, you know. It's like
exactly
inflation's lower, so it's still going up, just not as fast of a rate.
Exactly. So that's what we're seeing now. And you know, we're probably closer to a normal level. This was like the normal level, kind of. I haven't looked at the numbers exactly for like 2019, but we're getting closer to that normal level where we were before the pandemic. And that's going to have an impact on buyer demand, rental demand, et cetera. And so not only is it no longer the pandemic and everyone's just relocating to the free state, right, for a period of time or forever, but it's also a moment where we're just not seeing as much growth. Period. Right. It's just not the affordability limit has hit the top. And so they're leaving for that reason too. We're experiencing both. We're experiencing like, hey, people aren't relocating because we're not in this weird moment of COVID, and people are relocating because it's just too unaffordable. Right. Or it's just like cheaper to go somewhere else. That's the truth. And that's what we That's what's happening so often when we're selling homes for people right now. It's like, we're going somewhere that's cheaper. That's what we're going to do.
And you've said it many times.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
still seems to be the case. But again, which it's kind of like, well, all right, so where are you going? I mean, we talked about this. It was like, I guess maybe Georgia or South Carolina. I mean, I'm just trying to think of places that are really that practical for that.
A guy we were
still bent on being in a coastal area, you know.
A guy we were just with today, he's going to the Villages. He's super pumped. He's super pumped. He's like, look at all these fun things we can do. So, you know, and he's selling his, you know, $700,000 home. And but you know what's interesting? Like, those homes in the Villages, he's gonna buy a $600,000 home. Like, prices are high everywhere.
Wow.
They're just,
even in the Villages, huh?
The Villages are pricey. I think there's cheaper homes that he could buy, but you know, he wants what he wants. So, and then same with the lady in Georgia. We're selling her $600,000 home. She's buying a $600,000 home in Georgia. It's like it's not as cheap as you would think. This is interesting. I wanted to comment on this. Palm Beach County saw a sharper percentage decline of over 2,000% from 2023 to 2024. So population,
that didn't
growth.
Yeah, and at first glance, right, when you throw down a number like that, I'm like, wait, what?
It sounds crazy, but the numbers aren't as big as Miami numbers, Miami-Dade County numbers. The population's just bigger there, right? And so yeah. And Broward County had a 77% drop from 23 to 24. Yeah. So just that's happening. And this was the other thing you mentioned. You're like, hey, I felt like rents came down. Well, it depends on what you're renting, right? If you're renting this like very low income thing, the stuff that we typically own and operate on as our business, this lower income workforce housing stuff, that has remained relatively strong. But that like Class A and or Class A like stuff has been softening more, right? Especially like if you own a condo and you want to rent it out, we're seeing lower prices than last year. So
now, are you noticing more condo properties that are going up for rent? I mean, just because people have been unable to unload them, as we've talked about many, many times over the last year.
Inventory is climbing, but there's demand here. Like, it may feel like things are softening, but as soon as you hit that threshold and I guess this goes for any market, anything moves at a price, but the price isn't like zero. It's closer to where you thought you were going to get. Frankly, it's maybe 10-20% less, but it's like as soon as you hit that, people show up and they rent, they buy, it gets done. It's just unbelievable. People don't believe me because they're not in the market every day like we are, but it's a thing. It's a thing. It's like, once you hit that price, it rents. It's not like 25 years ago where you put a home on the market, you put something up, and it takes 3, 4, 5 months to rent or sell a home. It's not like that. It's like, oh no, we're priced right. It just takes time. No, that's not what it is. It's like, if you're not priced right, you're just not selling. And then as soon as you price right, it sells. So
I just sense you're probably dragging a lot of your seller clients kicking and screaming to get to the right price point. And then as soon as you do, you're like, oh, wow, you were right. Huh? How about that?
You and I have talked about this many times before. In 2020, being indecisive or being hesitant or not believing that you're overpriced made you money, because as time went on, the market caught up to your pricing, and or somebody just showed up because there was so much demand and just paid the number and got it done. You just had those things happening. Now, that same strategy, if you will, and not that it's a strategy on purpose, it's that indecisiveness, etc., or just not believing you're overpriced is losing most sellers money right now, because as time goes on, it feels like values are coming down, or it's getting harder and harder to move the property at the, I would say, ideal price that you could have got maybe 2 or 3 months ago if you timed everything perfectly, because everything really needs to be lined up really well in this market. You kind of got to hit the details. The execution's got to be right in order to get that ideal price. And missing on that right now hurts you, versus missing before high it didn't hurt you as much. It still hurts you, in my opinion, but today you get hurt as a seller for not doing the right things. You either get hurt up front because you don't get the price and then you drop, or you get hurt during inspection because you didn't prepare condition properly. You didn't clean your AC vents and now you got mold specks on it. And now the seller or the buyer wants a $10,000 credit, that type of stuff. Whereas before it wasn't even a discussion. It's just like, hey,
it's like, if you don't want it, we got 5 people waiting in line.
Yeah. It's like mold, enjoy it. Right. It just is what it is. So
it's good for you. It builds character.
This is interesting. Stone asked a question. Let's see. What did he say? Do you think when rates come down, demand in South Florida will increase, even with it being more expensive? I think if rates drop, and that's an if, right? None of us know the answer to that. I know some people that are dead set on both directions here, and have their opinions, strongly held opinions on this. It'll improve. It'll improve our ability to sell homes, which will likely push prices a little bit. But remember, real estate moves slow. It doesn't move like the stock market moves, where one day it's up like crazy. It's just not as liquid as the stock market. So you can't just
tariffs don't suddenly send the price up and down, immediately.
Exactly. So like what happens today might really, if held consistent, it might affect the market in 6 months, a year and a half, 2 years. Like it's a little different. Yeah, we might feel it instantaneously slightly, but that consistent high interest rate, for example, I think this is something that like I try to communicate to our sellers a lot. It's like, hey, the rates went up March of 2022. And we hit that like high interest rate, the rate we're kind of living at in, I don't know, I'm not looking at the charts, but like July, August, September. And then we kind of rode out somewhere in that space for until now. So until present day. And so we had all these different things happening in that moment. Yes, it cost more to buy a home. Okay. But also we had people that wouldn't sell their homes in that moment because they had this locked in rate, even though they needed or wanted to buy a bigger home or relocate to a different area. They're only doing it if they need to. So they have this, what they call a lock effect, right? So less inventory was coming on the market at that time because why would you trade out your 3%, 2.5% loan in a house that maybe is making you uncomfortable because you have too many kids or it's too big and you can't handle it, whatever it is. You're not, until the pain is really, really high, you're not leaving that home because it's just so affordable for you.
Right.
So inventory remained low. Now, as time goes on, every day that goes by, that lock effect diminishes. The effect of that diminishes because more and more people have bought and sold. And they're bought, when they buy and sell at the new interest rates, right? And so now there's nobody holding you to, there's no lock effect holding you in place, because if you sell, you have a 6.5% rate. You go sell, you buy another home at a 6.5% rate. So that there's all these things that were like affecting the market. So again, if that interest rate being held constant over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, like we're going to feel it more and more as time goes on. I don't think we felt the full impact of a 6.5% rate. It's just like, it's still coming. We're still starting to feel that on some level. Yes, we felt it, but there's other things involved in this that take time to really resonate in the marketplace. And so, yeah, that's it. That's it.
It was also fascinating to see that Boca Raton, once again, being the trailblazer that it is, reportedly becomes the first city in the U.S. to land a federal transit-oriented development loan. And if you're like me and said, wait, a what? Okay. Boca Raton has made history with the U.S. Department of Transportation. Evidently, they're giving out transit-oriented development loans. I'd be interested to know how much, having a current president who resides in this area would, be a part of that. But in any case, they did this. I had no idea this was coming. Had you heard about this?
This is new. I just found this and flipped it to our producer, right? So I was super interested to learn about this. This is like, it's right down the street from where you're at, which is interesting. Yeah, this is cool. I think it's just generally net positive for Boca. And I think you're asking like if the president who was like involved in this, it was the previous administration that supposedly put this federal system into place where you can get loans like this to help support development around and or transportation. So that's previous administration's work, but interesting nonetheless.
And again, coming from a relative newcomer, when I'm driving around, obviously I see the Bright Line, I see the Tri-Rail. It is interesting that you have two services like that.
Yeah.
I mean, what was the backstory with Tri-Rail? It just is just Palm Beach County. I mean, obviously I remember when the Bright Line opened, but I feel like there was such a conflict of interest with those two entities.
Well, Bright Line's fancier. Well, but Bright Line also doesn't stop in every, like Tri-Rail has a ton of stops, right?
Oh, it does. Okay.
Ton. I've rode the Tri-Rail a bunch of times. You can stop in multiple locations in the city. Sometimes it just stops a lot. It's not just Palm Beach County. They go up and down.
Do they go up I didn't know how far north or south they went.
In college, I used to jump on it and take it to the airports, right? So we just jump on it.
And it's been around that long. I mean,
yeah.
If you had told me it had been the last 10 years, I'd believe you.
Yeah, at least, I mean, more than 20 years. This has been a thing. At least when I got here, it was a thing. So and Bright Line's more expensive. Tri-Rail is absolutely a commuter rail, right? Which can be more efficient for like employment and just moving between areas. Absolutely. More like the subway, right? In the city, right? It's just like a ton of stops if you want.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes longer to get anywhere. Yeah.
Which, if it still doesn't make sense here, what exactly this federal loan is helping with, it has to do with building more affordable housing near these Tri-Rail locations. For example, you have the Colony Project, which is a mix of workforce and market rate housing right near the Boca Tri-Rail station. We're talking 300 plus residential units, parking for commuters, 50% Tri-Rail fare discounts for residents. They say construction could start as early this summer, but obviously those things are always in the works.
Yeah, we'll see. So supposedly they got this loan. Usually when they get these loans, they start moving. I was just over here today, and because we were looking at this, I like pulled in, and I was just like, oh, let me see what's going on. So it kind of looks the way it looks right now. They're not really moving dirt. I don't have exact location, but I'm pretty sure this is it right here on this dirt right here, which is right off Yamato, right next to 95. Adjacent to downtown. Yeah, adjacent to Brick, which is interesting. So more housing around this area, and if you don't know, Brick is the Boca Raton Innovation Campus, which we've reported on this too, right? They got a lot going on there, right?
Yeah, and then imagine being somebody who necessarily doesn't want to live in Boca. I understand the commuting to work somewhere like that. I'm sure it's great.
Yeah, I think I'm just looking this up right now. I can't remember who the developer is, but I think it's it's CP Group. Okay. So so you have just a number of these big players in this area, kind of doing multiple projects. So there's a big redevelopment play going on right here. Our buddies what is it, Penn, Florida?
Yes.
Right, own this right here.
Doing something other than the Mandarin.
Yeah, this is hopefully they're successful and they move on to this project. And if they do move on to this project, don't hold your breath, because they don't have a great track record in Boca right now. So Penn, Florida, as John mentioned, is the group that's got the Mandarin and has been working on that for 10 years. So, but I drove by it today and they're stuccoing the outside. Like,
wow, good for them. They did it. Yeah.
They need to move it along a little bit. Yeah, to say the least.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So this, but anyway, this is how many units? 300. No, hold on. 300 new housing units are set to take rise next to the Tri-Rail station, blending convenience and connectivity. And guess what? You get a 50% discount on your commute if you reside in these buildings. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just bringing the South Florida community a little closer together.
So, and you mentioned the Colony Project. So the Colony Project is a big project. So who's building this is always the question. Like, who's doing this? Both this project here, the transit project, is being built by 13th Floor Investments, and the Colony Project is also being built by 13th Floor Investments. And they have a ton of different projects in the area. They're a Miami-based developer with, I don't know, $5 billion under asset management, right? So big players in South Florida doing big things. And they also got a project right up the street, which is right here. Yeah.
Oh, that one. Yeah. I was going to say, I was looking at the parks at Delray because I see that it also has completed its first phase. We got that docket to talk about after this.
Yeah, no, you're right. This is the Parks of Delray. This is the Parks of Delray. So I was confusing it. So the Colony Project is the name of the project next to the Tri-Rail. And this is the other project that they're working on, the Parks of Delray, right? Yeah.
All right. So since we've gotten there, let's just talk about it, huh? So as mentioned, obviously 13th Floor Investments, they have a lot of nice projects. You just go to their website. If you knew nothing else about it, Larry just had the site pulled up. They look very nice in the rendered sketches, and I'm sure they will turn out great when it's all said and done.
This is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, super nice. And they finished a good portion of this. As we mentioned, phase 1 was delivered, right? I drove by this the other day because we were showing homes over there, and I was like, man, they really knocked this out. I thought it was done, but I guess they have another phase. They got a lot more to do here, right?
I feel like everybody does it in phases. And when I say like everybody, I mean that there's at least 2 phases involved. You know what I mean? It's not just like, oh, we just built it and done. It's like, no, we're going to roll it out in phases.
Yeah, this is a 43-acre transformation in Delray. It's a big,
that's a lot.
Land. Yeah. So phase 1 had 420 luxury rentals, which are now open, 1 to 3 bedroom apartments and townhomes, 580 square feet to 1770 square feet, and they have resort style amenities, right?
Yeah. I'll tell you, just being down there, the other day and doing some drone work, if I knew nothing else about the area, it becomes so apparent how much of the product is brand spanking new. You know what I mean? You just when you can literally see things from 400 feet and much higher, you're just like, wow. I mean, everything stands out a little more. It's all so new. It's crazy just how everything has just been seemingly, just reinvented, if you will. The staging, everything else about it. It's exciting and it's hopeful when you see stuff like that. Or maybe it's just me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it. But, we do know there's people here who are resistant to this stuff.
Oh, well, always. You know why? Do you know why?
Traffic. Traffic. No doubt. It takes a little while to get around. I'm not going to lie. Yeah. Okay. Well, also with this project, they are doing a 10% workforce housing portion to support the affordability issue, which still this 10% workforce housing.
That sounds low. I get all the numbers mixed up when it comes to the percentages of the live local and all that.
10% is like 70 units because the total amount of units is 747 multifamily units. And again, I don't know if they haven't mentioned this as being a live local project.
Yeah.
So they probably coordinated something with the city to get some kind of deal by offering this 10% workforce housing element to it. Right.
And also, well, I was going to say, do you feel like from what you see with the cities and the local governments, when they bite on these offers, do you feel like that's usually what sells it to them, is having a certain percentage dedicated to the workforce housing just because
100%.
it's such an issue?
100%. 100%. That's the move. That's why you see. So each city has their own like affordable housing plan, right? How do we figure this out? And then you see the state trying to say, hey, let's do it this way. Let's push this along further and do the live local projects. And so there's just layers to this. Absolutely. I think we talked about some projects that are going on in Boca that were specifically affordable housing projects, but were coordinated through the city. Maybe those are being converted to live local now, but we talked about these in the past. So there's different projects going on. So some negotiation brought that to fruition, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. What's interesting about this is, besides it being walkable and all that, it's got some retail, it's got office space. So this is like a full-fledged project here. I mean, they got everything going on, right?
I wish they had a few more sketches that had that stuff. I'm trying to visualize that as I'm looking at this. It looks like, a pretty standard residential community, but not, it's nowadays with all the mixed use developments, I'm always picturing shops and stuff on the first floor and then building everything else on top of it.
Totally. Yeah. And they got a lot of land here. So I don't know where they've put any of the retail or office in this project, frankly. I mean, look at how much they have. They have a lot of space. So, yeah.
Which again, it's amazing to me that they're able to secure that much land for some of these developments in a place where we talk about all the time how land is so scarce for new developments, and yet they just seem to find a way.
Yeah. Well, again, these guys, all they're doing is working on projects that are probably 10 years out, right? So they're wheeling and dealing maybe even further out than that, right? And so what we're thinking about works today. They've already kind of negotiated this, and that for 5 to 10 years from now, possibly. So they got land all over the place, I'm sure, in the queue, just trying to figure out how to do these things. So, yeah.
All right. Well, as we keep it moving here, I know we've talked about with Miami, and this is the most Miami bougie thing that I could think of. But it's apparently there is much more method to the madness. We saw all these nice high rises that have big brand names on the side of them, like Aston Martin and, Baccarat. There's a Porsche building and all that. And again, somebody who's still relatively new to the area, that just when I see these things, I'm like, oh my God, this is so Miami, it's so them. But for people who are unaware, developers are using those branded condos to finance luxury hotels, as other lenders evidently aren't prepared to give into that. So they've kind of backed off, which when you put it like that, I'm like, oh, wow, okay, that's pretty smart. Good for them.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a way to kind of brand a project to make it more appealing to a lender, right? And they've seen success with this. So the lender feels more secure, most likely, when giving over their large amounts of money for a project that's going to take God knows how long to finish, right? 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, right? So
and they'll still beat the Mandarin.
And they'll still beat the Mandarin, especially as we're entering this like questionable marketplace, right? Where it's like, are we going to be able to hit the numbers? We've been working with the developer on a project here in Boca, condo building, and he keeps coming back to me with, how confident do you feel about hitting this threshold, this per foot number blended? And then we're like going back to the stats. We're looking at the most recent, newest condo sales, trying to figure out how do we feel about all that. And the answer is we don't feel perfect. Can't guarantee that, right?
Right.
Whereas like when the Alina started in Boca here, like I mean they were crushing it. They were selling for more than they underwrote, right? So,
oh,
now,
I knew it was high. I didn't realize it was that high.
Yeah, I'm sure they were selling for more than they underwrote, or they were, or if they're not, they underwrote very bullishly, you know. So because the numbers they were just the demand was great. It was huge. They were selling these things fast, and now we're seeing more and more of this inventory on the market. We're seeing it take longer to sell, and softening of certain prices. So it goes back to like the execution on the listing side needs to be so perfect the first time, not the second time, not 2 weeks after, not changing prices as we're coming soon, like just correct from the beginning, everything, condition, marketing, pricing, and then you'll have the best shot of getting your number. But again, there's this just overarching like softening of everything. So
yeah, I just, and side note, it's like I really like the Alina as it's come together. When I see images, or I've gotten drone stuff down there before, it's really come together nicely. They did good work there.
The allure of the Alina, besides it's new and all that, and it's a great location.
Oh yeah,
it's like the community aspect of it. There's like a lot of them. The amenities are pretty solid, and the amount of dirt they have to like stage those amenities and make it feel open, and the fact that they back up to the golf course at the Boca Raton Club just makes it feel more vast and open. And so besides views and all that, the amenities and the community feel of these three buildings kind of sharing all the amenities, and each one of them having awesome amenities in each of the three buildings as well. It's something that's kind of hard to beat when looking at.
I would take that over a lot of those high rises. I mean, as crazy as this would sound, I enjoy those views more than necessarily being right on the beach where you have the sunrise. It comes over the golf course and that huge open area, like you said, because it captures so much more of that whole scene.
Yeah, it's so funny as I've done this, and I've even worked, and as I've worked with clients. I mean, one of our recent sales for $6.5 million or whatever it was, condo on the ocean, fully renovated, really nice, gorgeous. They renovated it. They owned it for whatever. They lived in it for a year. They owned it for 3 years, and because it took them like a long time to renovate it. They got in there and they're like, oh man, this like being on the sand isn't as awesome as we expected it to be. It's really windy more times than not, right?
And especially, and I know which one you're talking about, it takes up the whole floor. I could just imagine anytime you open the doors at both ends, the instant wind tunnel.
Oh, remember
you don't need AC, but I'm sure like I can just picture people going through there and both doors are open and suddenly you're like trying to go down the hallway like you're fighting the wind.
John, were you there when we were running the drone through?
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or at least I saw the footage. From the POV one, FPV one. Yeah.
The drone that was going through the house and was flying one side, the other side, and the wind tunnel literally just blew this drone. As soon as it gets into the hallway, the drone just goes. It is like gone. And we're like, this isn't going to work. So yeah. But to your point, the wind is like crazy. You don't appreciate like how windy it can be off the ocean. And so like back to the Alina being a little set back, having a slightly different view, but still very nice. It's kind of interesting. It's more interesting to me than being on the ocean, believe it or not. I agree. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I'd take either. I'm just saying if I had that luxury of choosing, I might actually go back a little.
Plus the ocean is dark at night. So some people like a city view because they're like, I want to. So like this is like educated condo buyers, right? They're like people like us that really
want to see the
get
skyline.
It. They're like, hey, let's see some lights. It'll be pretty at night. So like let's get that view versus let's get an intercoastal view with the city in the background versus an ocean view that just gets dark at night and is more interesting in the morning, obviously. Yeah. So yeah. And that's why the Alina is nice. But let's get back to this.
All right. So are we going to talk about the state bills now and HB
let's do that.
615 that has gone into effect. This is very interesting to me, being kind of a tech nerd at heart. HB 615 is, I guess, had previously passed, but it's now live. And evidently, the gist of it is Florida landlords and renters can now use email for legal notices instead of being obligated to just slap something on the door, whatever. I'm kind of surprised by that because tech issues, things like that, it's like all the other person has to say is, well, you know, I never checked my digital decrepit AOL or Hotmail account. I didn't get it. I could see this being a real problem.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, if you're like a reasonable human as a landlord, you're probably making multiple attempts here. You're probably sending a text message, making a phone call, sending an email. And then as a tenant, if you're not paying the bills or you're doing something wrong, and the person's being somewhat reasonable, like I feel like it's okay. But to your point, I can see that. Plus, what's interesting about this is, you know, I was talking to my property manager about this. So there is so voluntary agreement is required. We're skipping around here, but it says this isn't automatic. Okay. It's not automatic. Landlord and tenants must sign an addendum in the rental agreement consenting to email notices. No email notification allowed. So they'll sign something, right? So that's what he was saying. He's like, oh yeah, if I'm going to do this, I got to get everybody to sign up for it, basically. So yeah, this is interesting. So what are the key points you need to know? Each party must provide a working email address. Duh. If the address bounces, the notice isn't considered delivered. So this is just like risky for everyone, I think.
That's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean?
It's like one of those, it's like why I just find it fascinating that we decided to do this now.
Yeah, here you go. You can opt out or update your email. Either party can revoke consent or change their email address at any time, but it only takes effect once the other side receives written notice. Okay. Delivery is instant legally. Once an email is sent, it's officially delivered unless it's returned undeliverable. No more waiting for a letter to arrive. How are you going to defend against that in an eviction court?
I have no idea.
This is something we should bring Jaron on for the top eviction attorney in Palm Beach County and Broward and Dade probably to get his 2 cents on this because my guess is my recommendation to my property manager is going to be like, let's keep doing it the old way. Not because or if you're going to send the email, great. Get them to opt into email, send the email, but also drop the notice.
Yeah, do both.
Yeah. Let's see what this means. Proof is mandatory. The sender must keep a copy of the email and proof that it was sent. This can become critical during deposit disputes or eviction timelines. This is my point. It just feels weird. HB 615 also tweaks how non-renewals and move-outs work. Tenants may now be required to notify their landlord 30 to 60 days before leaving or face fees. In return, landlords must give clear written notice of the rules, timeline, and penalties at least 15 days before the notice period begins. Yeah, this is probably generally helpful moving things into the tech space, progressing. But again, I'm just gonna be paranoid that the eviction notice that's dropped or emailed isn't gonna hold up in court if they dispute it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, face fees. Who is putting on the fees here? What?
My guess is it's fees from the landlord for not.
And they can set it to whatever they want, as long as I guess you sign and agree to it in the initial agreement.
That's not clear. We should grab Jaron and bring him on to as this progresses, because this is taking effect soon, right? It's like a couple months around.
It is now in effect.
Got it. Yeah.
HB 615 is up in here.
Let's go. Yeah.
Anyway, but I just, again, because it's so funny because I know recently we've been so critical of older folks that have had to deal with the digital stuff. It was with the bad HOA management and people not digitally handling so many of these forms and whatnot. And yet here we are saying, well, why would you do this one digital?
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of like we should focus on these HOAs for sure. We need to get them moving faster. They're so terrible. They're so terrible.
Yeah. But it's that's okay. Well, we have that one, but we also have some other laws that are on the docket. Some have passed, some have not. I feel like everything is part of the post Surfside, deal.
Yeah.
So many condo safety law updates, which again, understandable to a certain extent, but I just feel like every law I see regarding condos in some form or fashion has been tied to that incident. This is condo safety law from State Bill 1742 and working coincide with HB 913. Okay. So the deadline has been extended for structural integrity reserve studies.
Who would have thought that they weren't going to hit that target?
I know.
That's a good one.
I feel like they were threatening fines and everything to these HOAs that didn't pay the fees, and yet it's like, all right, so they couldn't afford to do these before, and now you're going to fine them for not turning them in. Like, how is that going to work?
I bet you it was a combination of things because I like, first off, like these condo boards, they don't always have their act together. That's number one. Number two is you basically created this new, not that it's new, but you created this business boom for these engineering firms that do this or specialize in this. And so imagine how many phone calls they got the day this thing was like coming due, right? They were probably from every HOA, like, or condo association. Hey, we need an SIRS study. We need a milestone report, right? And it's like, we haven't done any of this stuff. How much does it cost? Tens, 20s, thousands of dollars, right? Like, wow. Okay, great. Let's get in the queue. Yeah, no problem. We'll get you in 6 months from now because we've literally booked every day for the next 6 months, right? So that's probably what was happening as well. And so the guys,
that makes sense.
The condo buildings that were screwing around probably weren't able to pull this off, I'm sure. Yeah. What else we got here?
Okay, let's see. Loans and credit lines.
Well, hold on. Associations can pause or reduce reserves if recent inspections were done, only for non-developer boards. So again, this is kind of like, they needed help. These kind of buildings couldn't hit these reserve targets, right? So it's just, yeah, if recent inspections were done. So if they got the inspections, they could pause the reserves. So, which goes back to kind of what it was, probably not as bad as what it was, which was basically everybody vote that we don't want to do reserves. Okay, cool. We're not doing reserves. We'll let the guys 20 years from now deal with all the shit we didn't pay for. And anybody who gets caught holding the unit is going to get jammed. And so we'll just play that game. So that they're probably pausing it for a little while to like let people catch up. It was probably too fast of a timeline to get people where they need to go. Right. Yeah.
Probably. I don't know enough about the financials, although I'm picturing grade school kids that have come into class and didn't have their homework done and the teacher's too nice. And they say, okay, well, you know what? I'll give you a couple more days, you know.
Yeah. Well, this is also interesting. Loans and credit lines can now fund reserve items. So this just goes back to like, this is all risky stuff, pausing reserves, which is what they used to do, take debt, because guess what? You have to pay debt back. There's interest on debt. You got to continue, it increases your HOA fees. So now we can go back to loans and credit lines can now fund reserve items.
So we're just now we're just like, we're continuing once again on the slippery slope here.
Yeah, we're just kind of back. We're back, baby. We're back. Condo market's back. That's what's going on right now. We're good. We're going to start selling condos again. This is good. Oh, my
God. We're solving the problem by not solving the problem.
Yeah. We'll deal with this in 10 years, John. It's no big deal. This is fine.
God.
This is fine.
Let's keep kicking the can.
It's fine. Let's see what else. Tighter conflict of interest rules for engineers, inspectors, and contractors. Probably good. Community association managers must register and disclose their employer. Okay. I'm sure there's reasons.
What's the significance? Yeah. What's the significance to that?
Yeah.
Why? Okay.
Yeah. maybe there's
Conflict of interest. That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah. Cities and counties must report building safety data to the state. Probably a good thing. Reserve budgets now apply to projects over 25K, not 10K. Okay. Yeah. So some of these things are, maybe positive.
Substantial. I was going to say substantial, but very low key substantial.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like they've just kind of slid that one in there, and then they're going to have another update, and we'll be having this conversation again in another 2 years, and it's like, okay, well now SIRS that's been pushed back another 5 years.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about
this one. I've seen a lot with the Live Local Act amendments, and this is getting crazy with Miami and all of their historic buildings, from like the 1950s, those iconic going right down the coastline. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That you see in the video games and everything else. I mean, that's a very iconic spot. So it's affordable housing bill. You have that with developers who can demolish buildings in historic districts without city commission approval.
So the backstory is we've had this Live Local thing, but Florida just supercharged it to inspire more affordable housing development. And they just said, basically here's a rule. And they were pretty aggressive about it, right? And they were also like, by the way, cities can't fight some of this stuff. Like, they just have to accept it, right? And so, to your point, developers can demolish buildings in historic districts without city commission approval.
Now, and it's like historic. There are certain parts like Miami and the Strip there. That's very iconic, no question about it. If I was a native there, I would be fighting it tooth and nail as well. I think it's in the best interest ultimately of everybody there just to keep that together. However, I also come from St. Louis, in its own right, a very conservative area that has a history of trying to preserve, for some inane reason, all these crappy ancient factories that were downtown, from like the early 20th century. And it has totally screwed them from any kind of development. Now, I don't know if there's been, more pushback on that in like the last decade or two, but I know traditionally that it's like that's immediately what comes to mind. It's like, I understand wanting to preserve history, but it's a balancing act. It's like, because you had those crappy factories there that it did nothing. Nobody goes and visits these things. Nobody cares. They're just eyesores. So there's a lot of places that I'm sure can part ways with their history.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll see what happens.
I was gonna say, no, I really hope. I hope this Miami and the Strip. I hope, and I guess call me a foolish optimist. I have a hard time seeing them tear that stuff down. Well, but crazier things happen.
Think of it like this. Think of it like, from my perspective, if you're going to do something as a developer that's hated or resisted by a community, you're going to have a hard time doing a lot of other stuff in the future. I'm sure these commissioners, like, you got to make, like, as a developer, you got to be buddies with these commissioners, right? So to get things going and get projects done, you got to have a lot of cooperation from the city. And so if you're trying to do this project over here and get this done, and this is all, above board, fine. And then you get this new project where you're literally going to demolish this cherished asset of the city. And everyone's kind of like, dude, don't do that. You know what I mean? And you do it, you're probably going to have a problem. So I don't think it's as easy as, like, there is this community thing that will prevent some of this stuff from happening. If you're a real
people are going to tie themselves together in front of the structure, and the bulldozers coming in.
Yeah. If you're a real developer, like you probably care about reputation and other projects in a city. And for the most part, any of these bigger projects that are getting done are done by real guys that have to have real pull and real representation within the city. So they've probably, funded most of these guys' campaigns, So yeah. So besides that, this is kind of interesting, I thought. So projects can now match the tallest building within a 3/4 mile radius, even in low-rise areas. That's kind of interesting, right? So you just build this huge, super tall building, Just
And now you got free reign to do it anywhere else within 3/4 of a mile.
This is also a big deal. This has always been a concern or issue, which is 15% reduction in parking requirements for eligible projects. So again, that's been a big thing to like get things passed, like reducing parking. Right. So
So what you're saying, there's going to be less parking availability upon these project completions? Jesus, does no one learn anything? I cannot overstate, maybe being born a grumpy old man. There is nothing I hate more than the inconvenience of parking. It can ruin my entire evening. It is like an energy sucker. It just saps the life out of me trying to spend that extra 10 minutes to find a spot. Like, it's not even about the money. It's just about the convenience.
Well, like take like downtown Delray, right? I mean, that's probably arguably like when something's actually going on there, finding parking is super tough.
You know what? When I go to, I found myself, I've parked at the iPick a few times just because I don't want to deal with anything else.
Yeah, of course. 100%.
Yeah.
Religious groups can now build live local projects on their land.
Oh, thank God.
Developers can combine neighboring parcels to expand sites. Okay. Cities must report live local lawsuits and outcomes annually. Okay. Legal challenges are fast tracked with fee caps set at $250K. Okay. Back to like, these are big projects, right? Like $250K sounds like a lot of money, but to these guys,
no, that's nothing. And I know I'm always a little reluctant to, say it's a good idea to have caps on legal fees and stuff, but this isn't, I don't know. I wish I knew more examples of this, but it just sounds like anytime you get the fee caps involved with legal challenges, it just, it seems like you get away with bloody murder as long as you can cover that $250,000 fee. Because you said those big developers, it's like, okay,
it's really hard. Like there's no great solution, right? So it's like for any of this. So
everybody loves fast-tracked legal challenges, but it doesn't happen.
Let's talk about the proposals that died in committee or were just withdrawn. And this is one we talked about, the first one here, a bill to eliminate the Florida Real Estate Commission. I'm gone. Gone. Yeah, I don't entirely understand that from this is a commission that, has checks and balances in place to make sure real estate agents aren't doing bad things, right? So arguing it would streamline oversight and cut government costs. Maybe it cut government costs. Maybe it would streamline oversight. I don't know. Reduce bureaucracy and shift its duties to the Department of Business and Professional Regulations. That's what we talked about, right? So, hey, I don't know, not crazy, but who knows? I don't really have
but then, it's like you lose that level playing field where the big boys are going to get away with bloody murder.
Yeah.
And that's what, I from my understanding, that's what this FREC is all about, is trying to have a level playing field with all of the developers.
Yeah. Well, this is more focused on real estate agents.
Oh, on the agents. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And like how they conduct themselves in business. So like if somebody feels done wrong by a real estate agent, then they can report you to FREC. And then FREC has the right to revoke your license, if they find you guilty. Right. So,
Do you, without obviously throwing any names out there, but do you come across realtors that you can tell are probably doing some shady stuff to try to take advantage of a situation? Does it happen a lot? I
think it's less realtors doing shady stuff and more realtors just not knowing what the heck they're doing.
That would make more sense.
You know what I mean? It's more like maybe they are committing some kind of like ethics violation or whatever, but it's just because they're a mess or they're just like not the greatest human. Right. And so
the bottle service girl didn't turn out to be as good of a real estate agent as everybody thought she'd be.
Exactly. Or like, they're just kind of a mess. And so in theory, the broker should be kind of watching over them, but that's not how the business is really plays out. They got a broker that has 400 agents, and like no one's really watching these people, and they're just running around, so doing whatever they're doing, and then messing up, and then the broker gets, the violation and the agent, right? If something happens that's bad, and then they have to defend it, and that's what the broker's job is, to basically help protect the agent or coach the agent, right?
Well, so I guess in that case, let's pretend hypothetically it would have been eliminated. Then who would have? I mean, you just could do whatever the hell you wanted.
Well, just like every other like business license or most other business licenses in the state of Florida, the Department of Business and Professional Regulations is the one who approves it. Technically, when you become a realtor, the DBPR, Department of Business and Professional Regulations, is the one who kind of licenses you, right? And so like now you got this like FREC thing, a Florida Real Estate Commission thing, that like on the side kind of watches and fields issues and helps solve problems when it comes to like violations performed by the agent, instead of like every other business. If you have a violation, you get reported to the DBPR, versus now here you kind of get reported to DBPR, but it's really FREC, because FREC is an arm of it in some level. So they're saying, hey, this is redundant. Why not just have but real estate is a huge thing. Like
especially in Florida, realtors. My God.
Yeah, there's just like a huge, massive thing, which is why this was created, because they were probably like, wow, this is overwhelming for DBPR. And they don't have one specialty. FREC has one specialty. All they do is focus on realtors. This is what they do. And they reprimand them, take licenses, protect the general public. And so there's a question of, would it continue to protect the general public if you just drop them into the DBPR? There'd be a lot more going on. So who knows?
All right.
We'll keep let's see. There's a lot to unpack here, but we'll streamline this so we can call it a day. Let's see. New powers for an HOA. Let's see. What does this have? Because
that's the last thing the HOAs needed, of course, is more power.
Yeah.
Like we haven't done story after story and seen headline after headline of HOAs having too much power. It's like, no, it's not enough.
Yeah. Expanded fraud investigation authority, because of the massive fraud scheme at the hammocks.
Right, the hammocks. Yeah.
Millions and millions of dollars being defrauded from the occupants and the homeowners. Right, that was great. Yeah. While and they remained in office, and while they were being what a racket. That's great. I think we'll wrap it up here.
Okay. Well, we touched on a lot of fascinating topics this evening, and certainly enjoyed the insight from the man, the myth, the legend, Larry Mastropieri, broker owner of the Mastropieri Group. On behalf of Larry, I'm John Laws. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
See you guys.